Hey guys, how's it going? Another week in the books. Hope everyone's doing well and staying safe as always. A little bit about what I've been up to this week. Honestly, same old, working, school. Just trying to get to spring break at this point. Don't have anything to recommend you guys, but maybe next week we'll see how it goes. But yeah, we can go ahead and get started on the assignment. I went ahead and chose Leonard Bernstein for my composer report. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with a little bit about his life and some points that I found kind of interesting. And then we'll go ahead and talk about a piece that I actually really enjoyed. So he started his fascination with music at a pretty early age of 10 when his aunt actually brought a piano into his home. So much so that he actually decided then and there that he wanted to pursue it full time as a career. And he was noted actually doing the jingle, playing the piano for the jingle for his father's business for radio advertisements, which was pretty interesting. Um, and that kind of just turned into a full-on career into his early life when he was offered a position as a assistant conductor at the New York PO. A little bit about his conducting. He was very excited. He was a very excited conductor, and he used a lot of passion and a lot of dramatized movement. Some critics saw that it was kind of unnecessary, but he said it was absolutely necessary because he said that all the passion and all the emotion that he felt he wanted to evoke into the orchestra that he was conducting, and he felt that that was the only way that he could really do it, was that he dramatized and he really put everything forward into the movements that he used. A little bit about his composing, the inspirations and like what he took to a lot was from Haydn on all the way through to 20th century composers, American composers, all the way on. He liked to experiment a lot with different instruments and different sounds, different genres. He liked jazz and he liked ragtime, so he put that a lot into a lot of his work, especially towards a little bit later on into his career. He was a very gifted speaker, and he felt that he was able to cover the topic of music very well, and he really wanted to educate people about music, and he wanted to let everybody realize, make everyone realize that everyone's a musician in their own way. So he actually had a TV program that ran for quite some time, and he would explain musical concepts, and he would have a lot of guests on his show that were prolific musical figures. He was just using music as a device of entertainment, but education for children and adults alike. And the show was actually pretty successful. So, and I think that's a little bit when he started to take off into his career, and his fame started to rise to prolific levels. He went towards a little bit more of a commercial direction towards this point of his life. And you can definitely hear that, especially in his later work, especially in one of the pieces that I brought in for you guys. And, he actually also took a lot to dramatic music, so much so that West Side Story remains one of the most important works that he's actually put out. Along with that is actually Mass, which is still a pretty powerful piece that a lot of audiences that are getting introduced to dramatic music really take to. He lived a pretty full and exceedingly successful life, I would say. I think he had a lot of prolific moments in his career, and definitely some that are worth noting. He was very proud to be Jewish. He was very proud of his religion, and he had a very strong political stance towards the left, and he was noted being a strong supporter of many left-wing groups, so much so that in the 1950s, the FBI actually, started to kind of like monitor him a little bit, just in terms of, ensuring that he wasn't like a communist of some sort. I thought that was pretty interesting. Another like a little interesting fact that I found out was that he was a homosexual, and he was pretty open about his preference, especially in the industry that he was in, and that actually contributed a lot to like the political preferences that he had and how strong he felt about them, and that's translated into a lot of the work that he produced, especially towards 60s, 70s. And that kind of leads me to the composition that I brought in for you guys, which is Slava Political Overture, which was produced, which was composed and released in 1977. And interestingly enough, Slava is glory in Slavic, and it's actually a very politically charged piece, believe it or not. And I think it's pretty representative of American nationalism in the 70s. It's really interesting, and there's a lot of experimentation that goes on, especially with the music, the instruments that were used. There's guitar, and there's actually vocal sampling of different prolific political figures and their speeches, which is pretty cool. I haven't heard that in an orchestration before, composition, so I thought that was pretty neat. There were a lot of different influences and genre as well. Towards the beginning of the song, you hear a lot of swing. There's a lot of like 50s swing influence, and then that kind of dissipates into more of like a slapsticky kind of sounding composition. It sounds a lot like a Disney score, if I'm gonna be real with you. It's very like silly sounding at points, and very, sped up or slowed down, like very dramatized that way. And it's a very very exaggerated piece, like the tempos, when they're slowed, they're very slowed, and when they're sped up, they're very sped up. It's really hard for me not to listen to the piece and almost like have a vision of like a scene within like a busy New York street, just because there's so many different voices, so many different things going on at once. It's there's so many different polyphonies that happen, and each voice of each family in the orchestra kind of has like their own chance to kind of shine and kind of have their moment in the piece, which is really cool, I think, especially with the tempo kind of speeding up and slowing down at so many different parts of the song. And then also you kind of hear like a jazz influence towards like the 3 minute mark. The piece completely slows down, and you kind of get like a solemn, somber, like piano jazz riff, that lasts for like about like 30 seconds, and then it kind of picks back up quickly again. Like I said, like you can kind of almost imagine like it being in a slapsticky, cartoony, animated like Disney film, or like a just like a Disney movie in general. It's very like commercial that way almost. It's cool because the production's very well done, and there's so many well thought out pieces that kind of work together so well that it's a really fun sounding piece. There's not too much expressionism going on, but enough to where it kind of keeps you engaged and doesn't really, you really don't know where the piece is going to go at certain points at times, which I think is pretty cool. I think it kind of like rides that fine line between being too expressionist and being too commercial, and I think it kind of just rides that fine line between the two pretty well. There's many shining moments and in this composition, and I definitely think that it's worth the listen to, and I definitely enjoyed it. It was fun. It was fun to listen to, so I definitely recommend it. And yeah, I hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, and have a great weekend. I'll see you guys next week.